Hey, it's John at Tinderbox Arts, and this is a review of the Icon brand Stormhawk boot. Now, I just bought these boots, and I did put them on and take them for a ride. A little bit of a break-in period, so I do have some experience with them now. Now, before I get into the details, let me give you some points of reference. There are two types of riding that I do, one of which is local, so I'll use my Triumph Bonneville here, and, at the end of the day, if I'm just needing to clear the cobwebs out of my head, I'll go for a 60-mile ride around local farm roads, or maybe I'll go out for a restaurant at some point, or maybe I'll go to a car show, just local riding. The other type of riding that I do is on my BMW R1200 RT, and in that case, I'm usually doing a cross-country trip, so I might do 6,000 or 7,000 miles over a 2-week period, so it's some hardcore riding. So those are the two types that I do, and the boot that I use for those types of riding may vary. The other point of reference I want to mention is my previous boots for cross-country type riding, which I'm still using. This is the TCX Baja Mid. Unfortunately, they're no longer made, and God, I wish I bought 50 pairs of these. I love these boots. They've been just brilliant, and I really like the buckling system. They're very comfortable right from the get-go, so I was really sorry to see that I can't buy these anymore. So with that as background, let me give you some details about the Stormhawk boot here. First of all, let me start with the price. These are not super expensive. I paid $185. And as motorcycle boots go, that's pretty cheap. Now, I chose the black color, but there are two other colors available. One is like a taupe, and the other one is a brown. So there are two other colors available. I chose these. Now, a primary feature I need when I'm doing cross-country riding is waterproofing. The way this Stormhawk accomplishes that, which is not atypical, is this material in here, this white material that you see, which lines the inside of the boot, and that's what keeps your feet dry. So the outside here can become saturated, but that material on the inside prevents the water from getting to your foot. Now notice where it ends here, somewhere around this area here. So that is not very high, honestly. And when you're riding with rain gear, very often the pants will kind of ride up on you with wind, and water can get up underneath there. So this area here could become saturated, in which case your ankles would get wet. So the waterproofing here is okay, but maybe not ideal. If it went up a little bit higher, I'd be happier. And then what I usually do is treat the outside leather with there's various conditioners that you can buy, and that does buy you a little bit of time. So if the boot's going to get saturated in 30 minutes of riding in heavy rain, if you treat the outside first, it might buy you another 10, maybe even 15 minutes, depending on the strength of the rain. Now, what about protection? It does have ankle protection here, which is built in. That gives you a little extra rubbing area there, so if you're sliding along the ground, this will protect your ankle. There is some toe protection here. I don't know exactly what it is. It's not metal. I think it might be plastic or possibly fiberglass, but I think it's probably just plastic. But there is some toe protection there. And the shanks of the boot do offer a little bit of stiffness, although overall these boots are not as stiff as some others that I've used. But it does offer some protection as far as that. So I would say it has modest protection. These are not going to be used for off-roading, I don't think. But for street riding, it has all the protection I think you need. One thing missing, very often they'll put it on both boots, but for the shifter, they'll put a little piece of extra leather across the top here. And that allows, a little bit more of a wear point. And usually they put it on both boots, even though you only have one shifter. In this case, we don't see that. There are some raised little bumps here, which don't really do too much. When I was shifting, I don't know. I didn't really notice any difference. So I think that's more of a style thing. Now, the lacing system on this boot is the BOA system, which is used on lots of outdoor gear, ski gear, all sorts of things. It's been around. It has a track record. I much prefer the buckle system because you set it once, and then in 2 little snaps of a buckle that when you put your boot on, it's going to be ready to go. The way this BOA system works, it has this button up top here. When the button is pushed in, okay, you twist it and it will lace up those wires there. And you can choose how tight you want it to be. However, unlike shoelaces, all of these points are going to lace up equally. So with regular shoelaces, you can choose to leave the bottom a little wider and tighten the top a little more, and you can adjust it in that sense. In this case, you really can't do too much adjusting. You just tighten this and all of these will tighten equally. Is that a problem? Maybe not, but just something to mention. When you want to take the boot off, you pop this button out and then it just leaves it loose and you can take that tongue and flip it down. One thing I do worry about with the BOA system is that these wires are exposed, and so is this button up here. Could they catch on my pants or on the bike or whatever? Maybe. I think it's important that you want to wear your pants over this button so you don't accidentally, pop it open and it ends up loosening on you. But it's like I said, it has a track record, so I guess it's okay, but it's new to me and I'm a little concerned about that. Now, the style of this boot is aimed at sort of looking like a hiking boot, which I think it accomplishes to some degree. If your pants are over this area here, it might look like a street boot. I do want to point out that the sole is fairly wide compared to other boots that I've ridden with. Is that good or bad? In one sense, I think it's good because when you're walking around, it gives you more stability. When you're putting your foot down while riding at a stop, that gives you a little bit extra edge here. So I think that's probably good. The one bad thing potentially would be if you're riding a bike where you don't have a lot of room for your foot as far as the shifter and the brake. This might feel a little bit more cramped, but I think most people will not find it objectionable. But I do want to point out it is definitely a little chunkier, a little wider than you would normally find. Now, if we look at the bottom, it definitely looks like a hiking boot. I mean, there's plenty of deep lugs there. Plenty of tread on there. So I think when you're riding in wet conditions or, where there's leaves in the fall, that kind of thing, this extra chunkiness here will pay off. When you're walking around, it feels like a hiking boot. It's very similar. So some people will like this, some people will not, but it is a fairly chunky look to it. Looking on the back here, there is a little reflective area right here. How much good that does, I don't really know. One thing I think is good, they have a loop right here, and if you look on this side, there's another loop. So when you're pulling these on, you can, hook your fingers through those loops, and that does help get them on. So I think that's nice. And again, typically your pants are going to be covering that area, so as far as this catching on something, as long as you have your pants over it, I don't think it's a problem. The quality of the construction seems to be reasonably good. I've looked closely at the stitching here, and it looks okay. I don't see anything loose or anything missing. I think it's reasonably good for the price. Is there better? Sure. You could get some climb boots or something like that, and they're going to be a better quality. But, for the price, I think these are pretty well done. Now, what about comfort? When I'm going on a cross-country trip, I may be on the bike for 10 hours, sometimes 12 hours a day. Plus, I'm loading the bike in the morning and I'm unloading in the evening. So I'm wearing these boots all day long and I need good comfort. As I said earlier, my TCX boots, right out of the box, they felt great, like an old pair of jeans. These, when I first put them on, I was a little put off because they didn't seem that comfortable at first. But after I think I did a 60-mile ride, that concern was over. Immediately, they wore in very quickly. And I would say if you're going to go on 2 or 3 rides, maybe 3 or 4 rides, these will be completely broken in. And they did become much, much more comfortable. Are they as comfortable as my TCX boots? I don't think quite, but that could be a personal preference sort of thing. In general, I think these are comfortable boots. You just have to expect that you're going to have a very short break-in period. And then walking around in them, the sole, as I said, is fairly stiff, but not as stiff as other motorcycle boots I've had. So it is something that you can walk around town in, and I don't think you'll be in discomfort. So comfort, I would say, is a strong point of this boot. And I should mention, inside there is an insert there which you can remove. So if you need, a special insert for your feet, you can remove the stock one and replace it with an aftermarket one. So not a big deal. It's very much like a hiking boot in that sense. So to bottom line this for you, I think the Icon Stormhawk boot is relatively inexpensive for a motorcycle boot anyway. It's comfortable after a short break-in period. This BOA lacing system you either like or you don't like. I'm getting used to it. It does have the waterproofing, which would be important, especially for commuting or cross-country style riding. And the fact that it's much like a hiking style boot means that you can get off the bike, walk around, and not feel uncomfortable in doing so. So I think overall I can recommend this boot.